In the early 1990s, Elizabeth Loftus and her student Jacqueline Pickrell conducted an experiment that seems, at first glance, too simple to matter. They recruited adult participants and gave them a packet describing 4 events that had purportedly happened to them in childhood. Events confirmed, the participants were told, by family members. 3 of the 4 events were real. The 4th was invented: getting lost in a shopping mall at around age 5, becoming very upset, and being rescued by an elderly woman before being reunited with family. There was no such event. The family members had confirmed it hadn't happened. The participants were asked to write about their memories of each event over 2 interviews. 25% of them produced memories of the false event, memories that were detailed, emotionally specific, and held with genuine confidence. One participant remembered the kind woman who had helped him. Another remembered being scared. Several added details that went beyond anything suggested in the original prompt. When the researchers revealed at the end of the study that one of the events had been fabricated and asked participants to identify which one, a significant portion were unable to do so even after being explicitly told that a false event was included. They were certain that the mall event had happened. Loftus had demonstrated something with remarkable clarity. It is possible to implant a specific, detailed false memory of a childhood event that never occurred by providing suggestion in a context of authority and plausibility. The mechanisms involved were not exotic. They are the same mechanisms that operate in ordinary memory all the time. Memory is constructive, not reproductive. We don't retrieve stored experiences, we rebuild them from fragments. Those fragments include genuine perceptual memories, but also knowledge, expectation, emotion, and information received after the fact. When a false event is suggested by a trusted source, the mind can incorporate that suggestion into the reconstruction process. Over successive tellings, the false memory gains detail and emotional texture. Eventually, it is indistinguishable from genuine recall, not just to observers but to the person who holds it. Loftus was explicit about what this meant for contexts in which memory was solicited and guided, therapy in particular. The recovered memory movement had produced a clinical practice in which therapists, convinced that early trauma was the root of adult suffering, used guided imagery, hypnosis, and leading questioning to help patients recover memories of childhood abuse. Some of those memories described events that family evidence, medical records, or basic chronology made impossible. Loftus argued that these weren't retrieved memories, they were constructed ones, created in the process of searching for them. The therapeutic context, with its authority, its expectation of discovery, and its techniques for inducing relaxed, suggestible states, was precisely the environment in which false memories were most likely to be generated. The controversy this argument generated was intense. Families were destroyed by accusations based on false memories. Therapists who had believed they were uncovering truth were confronted with the possibility that they had manufactured it. And patients, people who had organized their understanding of themselves around memories that may never have happened, faced a disorienting loss. Loftus's position throughout was consistent. She was not claiming that childhood abuse doesn't happen or that recovered memories are always false. She was claiming that memory is malleable, that false memories are possible, and that the justice system and the therapeutic profession needed to take that seriously. The evidence for her position was, in the end, overwhelming. Subscribe to Psychology Theories Explained to explore more of the ideas that shaped the modern mind.